Hello, folks. Welcome back to the Redeemed Marriage Podcast. Rusty and Heather Bryant here with you and back for another episode to talk about marriage. And we're really excited because we're sort of starting maybe a series, maybe not.
That's because I'm the forest person and your trees are all mixed up right now.
How?
Because I'm trying to make you do a big picture with all of these little topics. And you're like, yeah, I don't know if I want to do that. So you're kind of semi-committing to a series.
Well,
you know what a series means, right? Like several in a row.
I did not know that. Tell me more. Tell me more about a series.
But you know what? How are we even going to do this week's podcast after last week? Was it not amazing?
Yeah.
So good. So good. I feel a little intimidated to try to follow that.
If you didn't listen, you got to go back and hear the interview that we did.
So good.
So check that out. And so we did start thinking about a potential series. And like this would be, we're always talking about how to improve your marriage, things to do to improve your marriage. And we're giving lots of tips, lots of advice, like, hey, do these things, And we thought we would kind of change things up a little bit and basically tell you how to destroy your marriage.
Yes, wedding crashers.
Wedding crashers.
Yes, that's what you said.
No, marriage killers. That's funny. I was like, wedding crashers? How about marriage killers? Oh, boy.
We could say marriage crashers. Maybe that would get people's attention more. Okay, marriage killers.
I don't know, because I'm not committed to this series. But if we do a series, it's going to be something like this. But here's what we were thinking. We were thinking that, people don't just wake up one day and say, I think I'll kill my marriage. I'll destroy my marriage.
That's right.
But if you were to wake up, then you would need a plan for how you were going to destroy and kill your marriage.
We can give you that
and
plan.
so we just thought we would give you that plan.
Yeah.
Like, I'm ready to kill my marriage. Let's just do it.
And we're joking about it, but I can...
Are we?
Yes, but I can remember... people, when I would talk to them about it, it was almost like they thought that I woke up and said, today I'm going to have an affair. Or people that we talk to that have struggled with pornography, they didn't wake up and say, I'm going to be addicted to pornography. Same thing with drugs, alcohol, anything that takes you away from honoring God with your marriage. It's not today I'm going to do this. It is a gradual slide. And I think what we were going to talk about today is the drift. Like how it doesn't you don't just jump there. It's a drifting.
See, what happened here is I had this dramatic way of introducing this topic where I was going to say, we're going to tell you the things that you can do to destroy your marriage. And the first one is do nothing. See, that's
good. That's a good hook. Do nothing.
Do nothing. Good. But, you already spilled the beans. You told them what we were about to do, so it's okay. No, I just think that this is a very important topic because it really is the one thing where it's like, well, if you want to just destroy your marriage, then just don't do anything.
That's right.
That's the easiest thing to do. Do nothing. And we do have like this list of, 8 to 10 things that's sort of this plan for how, these marriage killers. And so if you like this idea and this topic, just comment, send us a note or something and say, give us the next one. And then that may encourage us to do number 2 in the series. If not, it's going to be a 1-part series.
That's right.
Okay, but you mentioned it and you said drift. So I remember hearing this, kind of the description or this word picture of if you are in the ocean. You don't like the ocean. I don't like the ocean because it has the beach attached to it.
I like the beach.
You like the beach. I do not like the beach, but when I have to go to the beach, I do like the ocean because I can make some activity out of it, and I would rather be doing something. And so, way back in the day, and I've been to other countries and different places where we've had groups of guys that have gone out into the water and done the whole body surfing thing and just spent, hours and hours out there just wearing ourselves out. But I do know the one thing, we would go out to the beach and you put your stuff down. You might have an umbrella or whatever. You put all your stuff there and you go out to the beach and you just start playing in the water. And you're swimming a little bit. You're just kind of just riding the waves. And all of a sudden you look up and your stuff's nowhere to be seen.
Where's my umbrella?
Yeah. And it's like, I don't know how I got here. But you didn't. It's not like you got in the water and was like, I'm going to go way down there. I'm going to just start swimming and go way down there. Your intentions were to stay right there where you were. But by not doing anything, you just drift, and you don't even realize it. And a lot of times you don't realize it until you're so far away. You're like, I don't even know how I got here and don't know where this is. So
that's good.
Yeah, so that's the drift that we're talking about.
That's good.
So, so let's just talk through some things that we've kind of discussed that are the things that you just don't, you don't show up, basically. You don't pay attention. I think that's a big part of it, is just the term don't show up. And if you're not showing up for your marriage every day, it means you're doing nothing, and it means you will eventually drift, and it means you will eventually drift so far away that you don't even recognize what your marriage is anymore.
Yeah. And, I think that that's super important, just even before we start telling some things, is that marriage takes work. Like, it is not just natural easy. It might be in the first little bit, but it takes a lot of hard work. And so if you get in that mindset of, I'm just going to go with it and we'll be fine. Well, if you're not putting in the work, that's where the drift happens. And so I just think that that's real important. And, when you were talking to me about this topic, the first thing I can look back and see ways that I drifted. I didn't know I was drifting, just like you just said. And even when I realized I was drifting, I convinced myself I wasn't. And so one of those ways is our communication got to be a lot about just A to B business stuff, like who was going to pick up the kids, who was going to the grocery, who was taking them to practice tonight, all of the things of just running a family. We talk about this in our marriage retreat. I call it BARF, business and running a family. If that's all you're communicating about, then you're drifting because you don't have that intentional time with your spouse where you're talking about heart level things.
Yeah, well, it's you're drifting from emotions. You're drifting from emotional connection. And when you were dating and early in your marriage, you would be lying if you said, well, that's the communication that we've just always done. That's not true. If you were dating somebody and all you ever talked about was business-related things, and I don't mean like business like financing and marketing and accounting. I'm talking about, like what you said, running a family. But even if you just talked to your girlfriend, boyfriend at the time, and you were just talking about schedules and what you're doing, you're not connecting, and you're not going to marry that person, because you marry them because there's this emotional tie, this connection. But that comes from deep conversations, long talks, phone calls, for us, it was phone calls with the cord on the, the actual phone.
Pulling the whole phone into the closet.
That's right. So, and I don't know exactly how they do it these days, but they do talk on the phone. They FaceTime. But it's a connection. And I think you're right. It's this emotional drift to where it just becomes a business, and you're just running the business of a family, and that's where you've drifted.
Yeah. And even if you don't have a family, if it's just the business of your marriage and making things work, it's not the heart level emotional ties anymore. And we often say that it's like you feel like you're living with a roommate instead of a spouse.
Yeah, so that's a massive warning sign. The warning sign is that you've lost your emotional connection, and that means you're drifting. And the way to fight that is that you show up. You show up with feelings, emotions. You show up giving your heart to your spouse, just like you did when you were dating and when you got married.
Yeah.
And you bring that back, and it keeps you from drifting.
Yeah.
So,
that's
all
good.
right. What else you got?
Okay, the other one, the second one I thought about that I remember doing is other relationships became more important to me than my relationship with you. Whether it was with friends or with coworkers or my kids, like those relationships started taking priority, and I would invest in them more. Now, hear me say that everyone needs friends. Everyone needs friends of the same sex. Everyone needs friends. And if you have kids, you have to be a mom and you have to be a dad. Like, it's not like all other relationships can go away. But your relationship with your spouse has to come first and has to be prioritized. And I can remember having lots of, times where I would go over to a friend's house and watch TV late at night, or we would have girls' nights, which girls' nights are fine. It's a balance.
Yeah.
And making sure that balance is there. But if all of your joy and all of your excitement goes to those other relationships, then you're drifting away from the relationship with your spouse. Like, I have a best friend, and there are lots of times where I'm like, I have to tell her this. But bottom line is, Rusty Bryant, whether you like it or not, you're my person. And if you cannot say that about your spouse, that you're my person, like, I would rather tell you something above anybody else. Now, are there certain things that my girlfriend is going to respond to better than you would?
Sure.
And you would be like, okay, but I'm real excited to tell her because of that. Yes. And do my kids, do they get first dibs on parts of me? Yes. But there is nothing that happens in my day that I wouldn't want to say, oh, I can't wait to tell Rusty about this. Or making sure that we have nights where it's just me and you. And that has to be priority.
Yeah, I think where the drift happens is when one or both of you just kind of get to that place where you just say over and over, yeah, it's fine, or it's no big deal, or because, this feels like one of those things that it's an action that you're actually doing. So you would think, well, that's not really drifting and doing nothing. Well, it is, because you're not showing up more for your marriage. You're
Right.
just doing something else, and it becomes it's fine, it's no big deal. And, then it grows into something more and more and more. And eventually you've just drifted away from your spouse because you're drifting, or you're not just, you're just drifting towards other people, because that's just how you're bending, and that's what you're bent towards.
Yep. It's good.
Yep.
Do you have one, or do you want me to do another one?
Yeah, keep on coming.
Another one that we were really bad at, and I think we gradually got here, is not talking about things because we wanted to avoid conflict. Like, just, nah, I'm fine. Or, just keeping things to yourself. You tell people that you felt like you were walking on eggshells.
Yeah, well, that one really is doing nothing, because, in a relationship where you're living with somebody or living with a spouse, and there's going to be conflicts, there's going to be tension, there's going to be things. But if you just get to a point where you're just like, I'm not dealing with that, I'm doing nothing.
I just want to keep the peace.
I'm just going to do nothing. Then you're going to eventually drift because you stop practicing how to, for lack of better terms, fight fair. And that's part of being married, is learning how to resolve conflict. And some of the best connections in marriage come from conflict. And how do we do it different, and how do we move on from here? But when you just get to that place of complacency where it's like, I'm just not even gonna, I'm not dealing with this.
Or what you used to do is you would just say you were sorry, so we would quit talking about it.
Yeah.
Because you knew you couldn't win.
Right.
Like, there was really no discussion. So you would just be like, you know what?
Yep.
I'm sorry.
Sorry. Moving on. And drift we go.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Did you ever feel like you were doing our marriage or our family or any of that alone? Like, I know that could be a warning sign is, gosh, I feel like I'm doing this all alone. Like, maybe a spouse is unengaged, unengaged, whatever.
Disengaged.
Did you ever feel that way?
Well, I did feel like you kind of had these roles, or we each had these roles, and it was like, you do this, you do your thing with the kids, you do your thing, to help keep the marriage moving along, but we're not going to do it together. And so it was almost like, I could go to work, and maybe you were being the person that was taking care of the kids or running the house or whatever, and then I came home and it was like, okay, now it's you, that that sort of thing. So I don't know that I ever felt like I was alone. I just never, we definitely started drifting towards, we're not on the same page anymore. And even I would even say that we weren't on the same page. And people are going to go, well, no, duh. But moral decisions and things that, convictions we had about things. And we couldn't even really talk about that because we were so far apart when it came to those kind of things. And so I don't know that I ever felt like, well, gosh, I'm alone, I'm just the only one doing anything. Because like I've said before, you were a good mom. And there were a lot of times where I felt like you were a good wife, but that was, even looking back on it, it was sort of weird because I've always wondered, well, were you just trying to maybe divert my attention from what you were doing? And so you wanted me to think that you were still a good spouse, that sort of thing. So it was there were some weird dynamics like that. But I really think it was more of just, we're not on the same page anymore. We don't believe the same things. We don't think the same things.
We had different values.
Very different values.
And what was important.
And so, I even think about, and our kids were young. And look, there's a, I don't know, I don't want to go too deep in the weeds here, but I just even feel like if we were able to, and again, what happened the first 9 years our kids were, so the affair happened when one was 9 and one was 5. And sometimes I think about those young ages, and even though the infidelity had not happened, we were not who we are today.
Right.
And of course that happens in marriage. I mean, you either grow or you get worse. I mean, and so we, now that we've grown to who we are, sometimes I think to myself, man, what we would have been we were good parents, but I think, man, what if we could do that part of it over, with little kids? And I mean, I think we're going to get to experience that one day with grandkids. And I think we're going to do that totally different because I'm even thinking, this sounds terrible, but you used to it was like you do the baths.
Yeah.
And so, and I get it. There's a good balance of hey, I've had the kids and I've been doing this. Hey, you're responsible for bath time. I just don't think that would happen today like that. I do think that, hey, that's a great thing for you to do. I get some other things done. But I don't know that it would be one of those things where it would be like, this is your job, this is my job, you do this, I do that. I really think we would just be more of a team.
Yeah.
Where it would be, we're going to have fun doing this stuff together. And yes, you have to divide and conquer.
Sure.
Like, I get it.
Yeah.
And we continued doing that even when they were 9 and 5, and
well,
we were growing and getting better.
Today with you do the dishes while I go fold these clothes.
Yes. But I just think that we were just not a team. And today that would be so much more of a mindset. And like the whole thing I keep saying is, show up. Like, show up for your marriage. And if you don't show up, you start drifting. And some of that is we're just not on the same page anymore. And so we're just going to drift apart.
No, I love that, because I was thinking like that people, because we hear people say, I just feel so alone in my marriage. But for us, it was, you weren't alone because we were doing all the work and getting it done, but it wasn't done together. It was, this is yours, this is mine. And so you're not alone in getting everything accomplished, but we weren't working together as a team. No, I like that.
And we weren't enjoying it. I mean, it wasn't fun. Because if we weren't doing it together, then it wasn't going to be fun.
Yeah. Okay, this one might go a little bit, this might be the last one we talk about, because I think there's going to be lots of different areas in this one, and I'm curious to see what you say. In the area of trust, that is definitely an area that I can look back and say I've drifted. It wasn't just like you woke up one day and didn't trust me. It was a gradual slide into less and less trust. Now, of course, there was a broken trust of, this is D-Day, I broke your heart, I broke your trust. And that had to be, that was ground zero, and you had to completely rebuild. But I remember you questioning me about things and wondering, like, is she even telling me the truth? Or that didn't add up exactly. And so, you want to be trustworthy and believe your spouse when they say things. But I definitely feel like that was probably an area where it was a gradual drift for me.
Well, yeah. I didn't just wake up one day and go, I don't trust you anymore. I think that there, like you said, there was the obvious bomb drop to where it was, I don't trust anything about you right now. But even before that, I think I was certainly drifting towards this. You're not who you were.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the drift was. The drift was, you weren't really showing up for our marriage every day, and that caused you to be distracted by lots of other things. And by not showing up, that's the part where I started to lose trust in you.
Yeah.
Because if you're showing up every day in your marriage and you're being intentional, then there's going to be mutual trust, because all the things we talked about, you're on the same page, you're spending time together, you're being a team, all of those things happen, and they just all builds trust. But if you're just doing nothing and you're not being intentional, you're not showing up for your marriage, then you're going to drift. And a part of that drift becomes, you're not a safe place anymore. I don't trust you. And then you just get in this hamster wheel of, well, if I don't trust you, then I'm not going to open up emotionally to you. And so then you drift there.
All these other areas we've
everything
talked about.
else. And, and look, and we're not going to be physically intimate, because that doesn't work when you're not trusting somebody. And so then it all just, when you drift, the drift starts affecting every single one of these things. And I think that's the whole point of this particular episode. It's not like you wake up and you go, I'm going to damage emotional intimacy. I'm going to damage our physical intimacy. I'm going to damage our teamwork, our communication. It's like you start to drift, and as you drift, all of those things start drifting.
Yeah.
So maybe that answered your question.
Yeah. No,
Maybe
it
it
does.
didn't.
It does. And you mentioned physical. We didn't even really talk about that one. But I think that if you aren't intentional in that, that can very much be an area where if you do nothing, you're going to drift.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, we say a lot that physical intimacy is a barometer of the health of your marriage, and we know there's so many issues. Like please hear us say it's a sensitive topic. There's medical things. There's lots of stuff with age and all kinds of stuff.
And trauma from your past. And I mean, there's lots of stuff.
But it's still that part of your relationship. You have to show up and you have to be intentional. And when you do, and again, we're not just talking about sex here. You know, there's just the physical affection and being affectionate with each other. And when those things, when you're taking the time to be intentional, then you can't help but grow closer together. You're not going to drift if and I think to be honestly for us what did I say?
You said to be honestly.
To be honestly, to be honest, I think that for us, you know, that was such a dangerous area of our marriage because we got to a place where I don't think that it really meant a whole lot. And it was just this, you know, we know we're supposed, it's an act. We know we're supposed to do it. We have needs, you know, let's meet the needs and move on. And it quit being fun. It quit being a real emotional connection. And I think we lost sight of what the Bible even says about it. And just really, I mean, you know, you can look at just how that part of life it was meant to be. God created it. He meant for it to be something beautiful between a husband and a wife. And all of it has been perverted by the enemy. And so when there's something that God created, the enemy cannot create that because God created it. So all he can do is pervert it. And so even in marriages that are healthy, there's a tendency for those things to drift into something that they're not supposed to be. And I think a lot of that is just the not being intentional, not making it about emotional connection, not honoring God with whatever, you know, whatever it is that you're doing. And then it starts drifting into other things that just become compromises. And, well, we'll just do this, or I can do this because you're not giving me this. You know, it's just
and introducing different things. And you know, I look back on our physical intimacy journey and I think about our years where we had trouble having a baby. Like, I think that was a big part of ours because it became so, and I'm sure there are people who are listening to this that can go, yep, and know what I'm talking about, is that we had to have, I mean, we had trouble having Luke. It took us 3 years to get him with a couple of miscarriages in there. And it was like, okay, you're on this medicine where you ovulate on this day, and this day. And it wasn't about the connection. It was just like, we have to have sex so that we can have a baby. And so I think that even in that, you have to be so intentional about not letting it become that. And nobody told that to us. Nobody said that. I mean, it was just part of the infertility journey, you know? And so like, if that's your story right now, or if it has been part of your story, or if you're 5 years down the road and you remember this episode, be intentional and talk about that. Like, have times, like, I wish that we had put in some other things that we could have been emotionally connected during those times where maybe we just laid on the couch and watched a movie and were intentional with our physical touch that wasn't about trying to have a baby. And so I can, I look back on our physical journey, and I think that there were so many parts of it that we just didn't know any better. And we did the best we could, and I just hope that rings true for somebody, or that you remember this later on down the line and think, oh, I remember Heather saying that, and just be really, really intentional with that part. So we've talked a lot on this episode about ways that red flags of
warning
drifting,
signs,
warning
red flags,
signs,
just like at the beach.
Like at the beach, you're drifting down the beach,
and there's warnings.
That's right.
There's red flags telling you to get out of the ocean.
That's right. Where
Quit
is your
drifting.
umbrella? Find your umbrella and stay with your umbrella and don't drift. And we've talked about ways that we can intentionally do that. And I just, Rusty, sometimes I just think, what if I knew all of these things before we went down our path? And I don't know, people just didn't talk about it. Or maybe I thought I had it all together and wouldn't have listened to a podcast like this. Maybe it's a combination of both.
I mean, I'm thinking the same thing. I don't know why this one has kind of stirred a lot of that up in me too. Just thinking about, like, I wouldn't trade. We've just say this all the time. We wouldn't trade who we are today. And it took what it took. And we followed God's lead, and we got to where we are today. But I kind of think about, like you're saying, these people that are maybe younger than us, or maybe they haven't gotten into some of these situations yet. And, they just happen to be listening to a podcast about a couple that has been restored and redeemed from infidelity, and they're not there, but that's perfect. Like, this is the kind of thing that I wish that we had been intentional about and we had learned, because, man, I just think about like 25-year-old and 30-year-old Rusty and Heather with the knowledge that we have today.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I mean, how incredible would our marriage have been back then?
Yeah.
And I mean, I even think about like the journey of through the infertility, and just not being able, and that we didn't even, you said it, but we didn't know how to handle it. So it just became, even that felt almost like selfish, and we got to have a baby, and everybody else is having a baby, and we weren't in this place of like, whatever, God,
that's right.
We're in this together. Whatever happens and wherever God leads us, we know that's the plan and the path He has for us. But we weren't there. It was like, we got to have a kid.
And that's right. And I don't know. I mean, you don't know what you don't
No,
know.
you don't.
And I never want to go back and say, gosh, I mean, there are things that you go, gosh, I wish we could do that differently. But I also know our testimonies are exactly how they're supposed to be.
It's a product of what we've
been
through.
That's right. And our poor kids, we pour onto them like, listen, because we feel like we have so much more knowledge of if we had only known this. And so we pour into them and are like, just, take it from us. You know, that's like Penny always said, you can take the class or you can take the field trip. And we really, really, really want you just to take the class. Yeah. But I know that, even our boys say that some of their friends listen to this podcast and that are maybe almost married or thinking about getting married or young marrieds. And guys, just don't drift. Yeah. Just keep your umbrella in sight.
Yeah. And wake up every day and just, I'm showing up today.
That's right.
I'm showing up for my marriage today.
That's right. And I know it's time to go, but I will say there are people listening to us that's our age or even older. It's not too late.
No, it's not too late.
It is not. Don't think, we missed it too. No, you didn't.
We're living in that.
That's right.
We're living in that grace.
That's right.
We're living in that. We failed and we didn't fall into despair. We fell into this ocean of grace.
That's right.
And that's what God's allowing us to live out here in the back half of our marriage.
That's right.
And yeah, it's an amazing and wonderful and beautiful thing. So it's never too late to start. So, all right. Hey, thanks guys for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Peace.
Peace.